name is Josh Ashley, a member here and your service leader this morning. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast is a religious community united by UU principles and committed to service, spiritual growth, and caring fellowship. Now, although it would be nice and comforting if I could tell you that with absolute certainty that there's a mystical energy field created by all living things that surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together, the thing is, this isn't the kind of place that will tell you what capital T truth is. No, we leave that for you to decide on. Whether that means a belief in the God or the force, or a naturalistic view of reality. Instead of telling you what to believe, we covenant to safeguard each other's dignity and freedom of conscience. At our best, we strive to be a welcoming community, to enrich each other through our diverse backgrounds, and to be willing to be changed by each other. You'll find more information about Unitarian Universalism on the back of your order of service. Announcements are listed at the end of the order of the service on the bottom right. One special announcement is if you forgot to bring the box for the guests at your table today, just bring it next week. Either give it to Amy, or there's a table in the back right to drop those off at. Please join us for refreshments at Olivia, if you'd like to come up. Get it done together. All right. There is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. Isaac Asimov. Please rise in body or in spirit for hymn number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. The words are in the hymn books near your seats, or they should be projected on the screen behind me. Open your ears to the song. Open to invite all the kids to come forward for our Story for All Ages, which will be read by our very own Liz Wilkins.
I'm going to start with you.
I think that cabbage is a good one.
That's a really good one.
Chick-fil-A ice cream.
Okay.
Broccoli.
Broccoli, nice.
Corn.
Corn, wow. You got a lot of veggie eaters.
It's corn. It's a big.
What a diversity of beliefs. That's not surprising. So now I'm wondering what one word you would use to describe your best food. Maybe it's sweet, or crunchy, or healthy, or local, or creamy. So many different words, different qualities of foods that you believe are the best foods. Now, I believe that for many of you, perhaps even most of you, the food you believe is the best today will not be what you believe is the best food for the rest of your life. I believe it's very possible for that best food to get knocked from its throne and replaced by a different food, a new best food. So what has to happen in order for this to occur? What must you do?
Eat new foods.
That's right. You might try something new. You might look at it. You might poke at it, right? We, as Unitarian Universalists, really value the freedom each of us has to believe about not just things like what we think is the best food, but about bigger things like why are we here? What is the meaning of our lives? What is most important and valuable to me? How can I most be true to the purpose I see for my being alive in the world? We affirm the freedom to believe what we choose about these things, but we also have the responsibility to work out those beliefs with thought and care. Can we believe anything we want? Probably not. But we do believe what our hearts and minds tell us is right. Thank goodness we don't have to do this all by ourselves. Nope. We are fortunate to have one another to help us try out our beliefs. It's like we can offer one another tastes of ideas that feel true. It's like together, we each bring our best food to share at a potluck. We each bring our treasured beliefs to share with one another here in our congregation. We can put several on our plate, first the ones we're confident we like, and then we can maybe go back for seconds, for a chance to try something our friends recommend as really yummy. And sometimes those new, yummy tastes will become favorites. So children, as you go forth, I encourage you to share with each other what you believe is the best food, and perhaps even more fun, what you believe is the worst.
Can I pop the corn?
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere you may go. A revered tradition in our fellowship is the sharing of personal joys, milestones, and concerns during our worship service. This is a sacred time for us. It's for individuals who are experiencing truly significant events in their personal lives and want to share that with the group. We invite those individuals to come forward and place a pebble in the bowl and either share silently or in a few words. Through this brief ritual, we deepen our connection with one another. choosing stars, choosing some stars, ignoring others, to project our imaginations onto the heavens. These maps shift over time across cultures. Names change for the assemblage of bright points. Drinking Gourd, Big Dipper, Plough, Lost Hunters, Saptarishi. Humans make constellations by connecting stars. Humans make meaning by connecting stories. Story to narrative to story. Some blaze bright, some are faint. Most are backdrop to the great and mundane human unfolding. Let us imagine the stories of our lives as a starry universe above our heads. As leaders of this congregation, we are tasked and trusted to draw constellations in this, our beloved small universe. May the stories we connect draw constellations that reflect a shared ministry that calls out the best in us. Please pause for a moment of silent meditation and prayer, or just a moment to breathe. We invite the greeters to come forward to receive the offering. Half of all cash donations this morning will be shared with our Share the Plate recipient, Youth Village, a nonprofit child care center located in Fort Walton Beach for children ages 3 to 14. It was formed in 1999 to create a safe place to provide various educational and recreational services to children in the local community. Please be generous. A member of our fellowship, another Joshua Moore. Those of you who have joined us over the past year already likely know that he's a talented musician and speaker. You may not know that he's training to be a journalist. This morning, he will be speaking on UUs in the golden age of cults and conspiracies.
Thank you so much, Josh. That was lovely. I don't deserve it, I'm sure, but I appreciate it nonetheless. If someone asks, I know that it can be hard to explain what exactly Unitarian Universalism is. But one of the easiest things that I have found to do is to show them our 7 principles. If you haven't read them or need a refresher, they are printed on the order of service. And those clergy and lay people in our broader association who worked carefully to craft these principles through many tense and emotional discussions and debates, they did their best in putting into words the consensus of the church at the time. And as what we like to call a living tradition, those principles are still evolving as we do. But still, they remain as good as any, a summary of the things that we share. To read our 7 principles is to get a pretty good picture of at least the broad outline of our diverse and eclectic congregations. Of the 7, some are easier to relate to our daily lives than others, and some of them lend themselves more easily to sermonizing or discussing. For good reason. For example, our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, as well as our second principle, justice, equity, compassion, and human relations, are both often spoken about or cited in UU circles as core to who we are and what we do. However, through the course of my work in investigating the causes and roots of American cults and conspiracy theories, I have gained a profound appreciation for our fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. But before I get too deep into the weeds, so to speak, I need to first tell you a story. This is a story about a friend of mine, and I'm going to call him Lucas. That's not his name, but I'm going to call him that. So Lucas was the mandolin player in a jam band that I was a part of. We were really close. In a tiny rural mountain town in Colorado, you stick close to the friends that you have. And we had similar backgrounds, having both rambled across the country before attempting to settle down. While I had hitched around the U.S. with dirty crust punks, Lucas had bounced from dead show to dead show in buses, vans, and sometimes on feet. Later, when we got to know each other, he took me to my first Dead show in 2015. Within Deadhead culture, this is something akin to a conversion, a communion, and a baptism all rolled into one. And we shared more than our musical tastes as well. Like me, Lucas was a seeker, always looking for deeper, hidden truths about the world and worlds unseen. What began as an earnest and mostly harmless fascination with psychedelics and chaos magic brought him step by step toward stranger, darker, and eventually more dangerous ideologies and beliefs. A fascination with mediumship and channeling, the practice of allowing entities like ghosts or aliens speak through you, led him to an obsession over UFOs and a supposed secret space program through a network of so-called whistleblowers claiming anonymous sources high up in the American government. He was drawn to a modernized version of very old extremist conspiracy theories, which begin with old school tales of the New World Order, black helicopters, FEMA camps, and deep underground military bases, and grew into a belief that you might have heard now that certain politicians are not only satanic, but literal cannibals. This belief came to consume him his entire life. As he spent more and more of his time online in forums and other conspiracy theories, it changed him. I watched all this happen, and at the time, I had no idea what I could do for him, or for any of the people like him. So I did what I always do when confronted with a problem that I couldn't solve on my own. I looked to science for answers, and this is what I found. And a quick word up front about sourcing. Most of what I have learned and read comes from the study of cults and conspiracy theories by sociologists, specifically the sociology of religion. Most of this work was done during the last great cultic explosion of the 60s and 70s, when studying cults was still very hip. Interest in the cult trend faded after most of the hard work had supposedly been done on the era's most high-profile cases, like the Manson family in Jonestown. I believe that most people just assumed that those in charge had learned from these cases and had learned how to handle these kinds of extreme movements and would be better equipped to handle them in the future. I don't know if any of you guys think that that actually was true, but 2 years ago, and 2 years ago and 2 days ago, a mob of riled up protesters fueled by conspiracy theories and cultic slogans stormed the United States Capitol. I don't think anyone here has forgotten that yet. And at the front of the charge among paranoid militia groups like the Oath Keepers and hardened street fighters like the Proud Boys were those who considered themselves followers of a secret government insider named Q. To most casual observers, the chaotic fever dream of the conspiracy-fueled attack on the Capitol came completely unexpected. This is not the world that most people thought they lived in. This is the world turned upside down. How could this even happen? Why didn't we see this coming? The answer to the second question is simpler than the first, but I'll do my best to answer both of them. We didn't see this coming because the public eye, media, and academia both, were turned to more sensational, monetary pursuits. Simply put, there just wasn't a lot of money or interest in studying cults, emergent religions, conspiracy theories, and how all of these things connect. So the work that had begun in earnest in the spiritually expansive days of the 60s got left by the wayside, mostly abandoned. However, that work, of course, is not lost. It's just left to gather digital dust on some collegiate server farm, where I found it. So what did I learn from all this? First, there's a great reason that conspiracy theories and cults often go hand in hand. All of this stuff, cultic beliefs, conspiracy theories, are what we call rejected or stigmatized knowledge. And our larger cultural underground is made up of knowledge, beliefs, practices, groups, symbols, myths, etc., that share at least one important thing in common, and that they were all rejected by the mainstream at one point or another. And here is, I promise, where it gets a bit messy. What is mainstream, what is orthodox and acceptable, and what isn't, is not some sort of moral distinction. These things are relative to our culture, and they change over time and will continue to do so. Christianity was once rejected and cast out, only to later become one of the most mainstream forms of religious expression ever invented. The old adage in sociology is cult plus time equals religion. And while that's a dramatic simplification, it's largely true. The messy part is this, is that everything, and I mean like everything, that is tossed out of the mainstream for any reason at all, it ends up on the fringe, in the cultural underground of our society, all mixed together. And so things that are legitimately harmless, and I mean that, like, for example, astrology or divination, can sometimes get mixed up with more dangerous ideologies and cultic groups. And this happens for like a lot of reasons. The simplest is that rejected or stigmatized practices have a common enemy in the mainstream media and mainstream science communities. So something like astrology or divination is tossed out and in the same space as anti-vaxxers, flat earthers, QAnon followers, and many more. And over time, the things that they have in common connect these different ideas in a vast web of newsletters, media, conferences, word-of-mouth communications. So-called UFO experts, for example, cite each other in their books and documentaries. They create lengthy bibliographies mimicking the forms of academia and science, cross-referencing each other in incestuous echo chambers of dangerous misinformation, pseudoscience, and quackery of all kinds. You might go looking for information on astral projection, as I have from time to time, and find what seems to be a straightforward book on the subject. Later, you might find that it heavily references another supposed practitioner who, through a closer look, turns out to be a neo-Nazi, as many of them are deeply involved in the occult. To put it simply, everyone in these underground scenes appear at the same conferences as flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, etc. They, as well as all manner of fringe seekers of one type or another, good, bad. And they appear together in the same books and magazines, as well as interview each other on their podcasts and other media products. So let's back up. What does all this have to do with us, with Unitarian Universalists, with our fourth principle, with us here in this fellowship? I hope that by now I've established at least that the cultural underground contains all of these fringe rejected ideas, good, bad, and every single thing in between. And the movements, ideologies, and members of that cultural underground exist in this messy web. It connects them all in ways that can be surprising. This is how so many people, and I mean so many people, fall into dangerous conspiracy theories as well as fall prey to cultic groups and antisocial, isolating belief systems. But why do they become seekers in the first place? While the specifics vary wildly for each individual, the basic reason is pretty simple. When a person experiences some sort of prolonged tension in their lives, some sort of issue that can't be solved, or a problem they can't find an answer to, and that tension cannot be resolved by mainstream political, social, or spiritual institutions, that person will often then seek answers beyond the mainstream, and out to the fringe they go. And as I said before, this is not always a bad thing. I would argue that it can often be a good thing, especially if you're somewhere where you shouldn't be. Many worthwhile communities, ideas, experiences have been pushed to the fringe, and many of them unfairly. For what it's worth, both Unitarianism and Universalism have been considered cultic and heretical by many, and I assume that perception persists to some degree today. And this is where our fourth principle comes in: the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. First, I want to say that I love the pairing of those two words, free and responsible. Together, they are the wind in our sails as well as the steady rudder to guide our ship forward into an unknowable future. There is no creed required to sit in these pews, nor to become an official member of this fellowship, or any other similar UUA congregation. That isn't what ties us together. Instead, we're dedicated to a free faith where each individual is free to walk whatever path makes sense to them. Whether Buddhist, pagan, Christian, Muslim, Jew, Taoist, non-theist, or anything else with or without a name, you are welcome to gather with us and walk together toward that uncertain future. But while you are free to seek truth and meaning, that search, I believe, needs to be a responsible one. And what does that mean for us in case of conspiracies, misinformation, and cults? It means that we have to understand that when we go seeking into the unknown, that we might find things that are dangerous, untrue, toxic, or otherwise harmful. There are many diamonds in that rough, truly, I can attest to that. But we have to keep each other accountable on that search. If you find yourself drawn down one rabbit hole or another, reach out to someone in our community and touch base with them. Show them what you've been looking into and ask them how they feel about it. Look together at the source of those claims, the network of people surrounding those claims, whatever it is. And in this way, we can stay accountable to one another and keep from falling too deeply into something that can pull us away from our support structures. For those of you with family or friends who have fallen into conspiracies of one kind or another, this technique can work as well. Ask them to show you where they got their information. Really dig into it with them. You don't have to keep an open mind to whatever it is that they want to convince you of, whether it's flat earth, election denialism, anti-Semitism. But it helps to remember that these people are people too. They fall into conspiracy theories or cultic beliefs not because they're gullible or naive. Most of the time, they are more misled than malicious. If we cut these people off and refuse to engage with them, they will be driven further into more antisocial and more extreme cultic communities. Outside of talking with people and helping to keep them grounded in our shared reality, in a broader sense, we need to work to create more inclusive communities with robust and empathetic support structures. If more and more people are driven into strange and novel and occasionally dangerous underground movements, many more people will continue to get drawn into dangerous ideologies and groups. At the center of this effort, I think, is empathy. We have to remember that it isn't just the gullible, it isn't just the naive that fall for conspiracy theories and cults. Anyone can, and I mean anyone. It is simply desperation that drives people towards desperate change. And if they can't find answers in a loving, empathetic, inclusive community like ours, they are that much more likely to lose themselves down a paranoid hole that is really hard to come back from. So friends, here we must create that community. Where we are all free to seek truth and meaning, wherever that journey may take us. But we must endeavor to keep each other grounded, anchored to our common covenant, our shared humanity, and our connection to that mysterious and beautiful interconnected web that binds us all together. Be kind, be love, be free. Amen.
Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 361. Oh, nope, wrong one. 291, O Star of Truth. 293, O Star of Truth.
293.
I'll get there eventually. We're just
Together.
A healthy faith empowers you by giving a sense of meaning and purpose to go out and be good and do good in the world. A cult does the opposite. A cult robs you of any agency and power you might have outside the group. Terry Crews. Please remain seated for the postlude. thank you for joining us this morning. Please feel free to stay for refreshments and then for our second hour discussion groups, which will start in 30 minutes or so.